Hello. So, yeah, good morning, everyone. So, my name is Moitri
Good
Biswas,
morning.
and yeah, good morning. So, my name is Moitri Biswas, and I am a third year undergraduate in the Department of Metallurgical and Materials Engineering, IIT Kharagpur, and I'm also the events team head as well in Composite 2022. So, here we're organizing an workshop regarding electric vehicles sponsored by the NinthSem. And
Good morning, sir.
yeah, good morning. So, yeah, so the full form of Composite is the Congress of Metallurgical Professionals involving students, industry, and teachers. So, Composite is a national meet conducted by the Society of Metallurgical Engineers, which is abbreviated as SME, from the Department of Metallurgical and Materials Engineering, IIT Kharagpur. The idea of Composite was conceived in 1994 to provide a common platform for fostering interactions and invoking innovations among those involved in the field of metallurgical and materials engineering and similarly related fields. So at Composite, we aim to encourage the young and enthusiastic metallurgists and material scientists from all over the country to showcase their talent. It also gives them an opportunity of a lifetime to interact with the stall.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. Are you there?
Yeah, just a second. Metro will continue in a second.
Okay, sir.
Just a minute, everyone.
In the meantime, I'd like to request everyone to please keep your microphones muted.
Hello, so am I audible now? Okay, yeah, sorry for the interruption. I just got disconnected a bit. So yeah,
Good morning,
so
sir.
yeah, good morning. So at Composite, so as I was saying, so at Composite, we aim to encourage the young and enthusiastic metallurgists and material scientists from all over the country to showcase their talent, not only in this field, but also in the related fields as well. It also gives them an opportunity of a lifetime to interact with the stalwarts in the field of metallurgical and material science who would love to share their expertise. After being stagnant for 2 consecutive years, so finally the Composite is back in 2022 with a bang. IIT Kharagpur is all set to witness yet another edition of Composite, which guarantees all its trademark features and events. So hereby, I would request Lalam to take over the rest part of the presentation.
So, hello everyone. My name is Lalam Hari Prasad. I am a second year undergraduate student of the Department of Metallurgical and Materials Engineering of Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. I am a subhead at Composite IIT Kharagpur. So, let me share my screen so that you can able to see the presentation.
Turn off video for attendees.
Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes. Yes, Lalam.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Okay, fine. So,
Yes, sir.
So hello everyone. Again, I'm Lalam Hari Prasad, a second year undergraduate student of the Department of Metallurgical and Materials Engineering of IIT Kharagpur. So we will be starting the workshop now. The virtual workshop about electric vehicles has been organized by COMPOSIT IIT Kharagpur, and it has been sponsored by NinthSem, one of the leading digital learning startups in India. So NinthSem has tagline "You aspire, we deliver." It is India's first and only skill-based digital learning platform which provides training and guidance to the engineering students and aspirants of the core engineering industries. Like you can reach out to NinthSem through our social media handle in Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And this is the address of NinthSem main office. You can look into this. And so what do we provide? Like these were our product and services. Like you will be able to receive certification course on industry modules, and we will be providing job guarantee courses. Like it mainly focuses on capability development programs. You will be having hands-on experience with immersion courses and live projects. You will be able to build your profile such that you will excel in core sectors. You will be able to participate in virtual and in-house workshops. There is also a facility of TNP self support to institutions. You will be having many webinars by industry partners, and our industry experts are from Tata Steel, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, Honda, Godrej, Tata Motors, Jindal Steel and Power, and many more companies. NinthSem has been recognized as India's first and only education tech, which provides training and guidance to engineering students and aspirants of the core and non-IT industries, who face a lot of difficulties for achieving success in the core field. NinthSem has been looked up to as the best of 5 distance learning service providers by Insights Success Media Tech LLC. So, I am hereby welcoming our host speaker, Mr. Ankit Acharya. Let me give a brief overview about our host speaker, Mr. Ankit Acharya. He has started as an entrepreneur back in high school, launched Collegiate Store, East India's first and only one-stop custom-based e-commerce platform. Exited out in his first year of UNI. After 4 years of studying apparels and everything around it, Mr. Ankit Acharya has realized it wasn't his calling. He has joined Bounce as a founding employee, aka early employee. As part of the CEO's office, transition between departments and opportunities, mainly around business, alliances and partnerships, city launch, legal operations, marketing and public relations. He was responsible for launching Zoingo, already also known as Sysconsern Bounce, and scaling it to multiple markets in India. He also acted as the spokesperson for the company and led internal and external communications. Post Bounce, he has joined Creator Stack, where they were building tools a creator would need to build a creative business in the cloud. At Creator Stack, his role involved taking care of global strategy and business. Currently, he is back at Bounce to lead communications and PR. Bounce Infinity is one of the leading startups in the sector of electric vehicles. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Ankit Acharya to continue with the presentation.
Hello, Hari Prasad.
Hello.
Yeah, Hari, as per the schedule, Mr. Ankit will be joining at 11:30. So in this 15 minute, I will brief about NinthSem and about the organizer NinthSem and how it will be benefiting the students mainly of the core engineering branch and who aspire to have a job in the core sector. And till Mr. Ankit joins. Yeah, this is the slide.
Fine.
So Guys, a great good morning. Hope to see you all in a very energetic way for the next 2 hours. And I will definitely assure you that these 2 hours you will definitely learning new aspects of electric vehicle. And we already got nearly 1,000 registrations for this workshop, and also registrations from international countries like Singapore, like Bangladesh, like Thailand. So electric vehicle or sustainable mobility is not a matter of concern for India, it's a matter of concern for the globe. So good to see you that you all want to learn and upskill yourself to match to the industry standards. So as a organizer NinthSem, we would like to give you a brief focus upon who we are and how we'll be benefiting into your career aspect in terms of upskilling yourself. So this is not the first time that we are organizing a workshop on electric vehicle. We have organized several others workshop on the very trending topics which are not your semesters, but you need to learn because technology as an engineering student, you must be knowing that technology is changing in every microsecond, be it industrial internet of things, but be it internet of things, be it electric vehicle, be it data science. So everything is changing in very fast. So you need to be keep updated so that you can match the industry standards so that after your graduation, after completing your engineering, you should be fit to what industry demands. So this is the core concept how NinthSem evolves. So we are India's first and only skill-based e-learning platform. Actually, we are not teaching you what are there in your conventional semesters. Rather, we are teaching you in a skill-based way. That sense I am saying means we are teaching some of the certification courses that can make you employable. So this is the main agenda of NinthSem. We are making you upskill and we are building the skills in you so that confidently when you are entering in any job, you can say that, yes, I am capable of doing this job. I am capable of leading any project. So yeah, that's because in India, there is a lot gap between what we are studying in our classroom, that is theoretical learning, and practical aspect of job. So to bridge that gap, we came up with NinthSem. The name itself says about 1 semester extra, because you must be knowing that for your engineering, there are total 8 semesters. But after completing 8 semesters, the students are in a questionable situation that whether they can capable of driving the job or not. So we are providing something specific so that they can confidently say that, yes, I will be completing this job or I'll be capable of doing this job. So we are based in Bhubaneswar, but no matter of our physical presence, we are into the edtech company. So you can visit ninthsem.com and avail our courses, and that can be suitable for you as per your needs. Next slide, Hari. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah. So in terms of product and services, first of all, you should make sure that where your interest lies. A kind request to all of the participants, please mute yourself unless and until there is a standard or there is a request to talk. You can mute yourself. Very much beneficial for the other listeners. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. Please mute yourself unless you are trying to talk. Yeah. So I'm into the product and services. So we are providing 8 major product and services that could be beneficial for you. First thing is that most the engineering student after graduating and mostly when they belonging to core engineering branches, just like mechanical, electrical, and civil, so they want to hunt for job because the placement track is not that well in terms of the core engineering. So for that, we are providing job guarantee courses. Yeah. So for that, we are providing job guarantee courses, means you can choose as per your like or as per your skills. You can choose if you aspire to learn something, then you can choose that course. And after completing the same, we assure you for the job guarantee. depending upon the course type. Suppose you are choosing a course on electric vehicle, and after completing the course, so definitely you will be there in an electric vehicle sector. So that is about our job guarantee courses. This normally ranges from 3 months to 4 months, and in that 3 months and 4 months, we will upskill you from A to Z. We will train you so that you can capable of driving the project independently, and we will assure you the job guarantee. Apart from that, if you don't want job, but if you want to build your capability, then definitely there is certification courses on industry module. If you want to learn something specific, then you can choose. We have lot of courses listed. You can choose from there and you can upskill yourself. And if you are currently working, after the diploma in engineering, people are working and they are trying to upskill themselves. So if you're a working professional, then capability development program is such program which can give you on-job training. And we have also immersion course and live project, means continuation of your semester, side by side, hand in hand, you can learn something new that is relatable to your study. And people, we saw that they have good knowledge, good skill, but their candidature are not being selected by major recruiters. That is their profile building part. They are lacking in that. Maybe the profile building in LinkedIn, maybe the profile building in terms of having a good resume, one pager, good CV or resume. So we are giving you handholding support to build a good profile and resume so that can be selectable, or that can be initially selected in the first training process of the recruiter. Apart from that, the sixth service is currently you are in, that is virtual and in-house workshop. If you want, then you can attend the virtual workshop with many industry pioneers, with many institute pioneers, just like IITs and also the foreign universities. And also, if you want a physical workshop, then you can request your college admin to contact us so that we can have that also. Also, we are providing training and placement support to the institutions. Some of the tier 3 and tier 2 engineering college, they do not have proper and full-fledged training and placement sale. So we are providing such service to those kind of colleges so that they can set up their training and placement sale that we call as NinthSem placement. Also, we are providing webinars by industry experts. You can check out our LinkedIn profile, the LinkedIn profile of NinthSem. We have various webinars listed over there. And talking about our strength, that is our industry experts. So we have industry experts from of the several top-notch companies of the India. Just to give you an add-on, we are collaborated with Tata Steel, and we have been collaborated with AICTE for giving more flexible and for giving more robust learning so that it can be benefited for the students catering to all the sectors. So we are a pioneer in terms of collaboration with the apex body of engineering education in India, that is AICTE, and also we are collaborated with Tata Steel to giving you more placement support, and giving you more skill-based learning. Apart from that, we have been recognized by Startup India and the Ministry of Small, Medium, and Micro Enterprise, that is Ministry of MSME. So that's about our product and services. And yeah, over to you, Hari, so that you can give a quick glance on our two keynote speakers today.
Yeah. So, yeah. So one of our host speaker, Mr. Ankit Acharya, is an industry expert in e-mobility products. He is a leader communications and PR at Bounce and Bounce Infinity electric vehicles. Bounce Infinity is one of the leading startups in the sector of electric vehicles. Coming to Mr. Ankit Acharya's previous information. Mr. Ankit Acharya has started as an entrepreneur back in high school. He has launched Collegia Store, East India's first and only one-stop custom-based e-commerce platform. Exited out in his first year of UNI. After 4 years of studying apparels and everything around it, Mr. Ankit Acharya has realized it wasn't his calling. He has joined Bounce as a founding employee, aka early employee. As part of the CEO's office, transition between departments and opportunities, mainly around business, alliances, and partnerships. city launch, legal operations, marketing, and public relations. He was responsible for launching Zoing Go, SAS Concern Bounce, and scaling it to multiple markets in India. He also acted as the spokesperson for the company and led internal and external communications. Post Bounce, he has joined Creator Stack, where they were building tools a creator would need to build a creative business in the cloud. At Creator Stack, his role involved taking care of global strategy and business. Currently, he is back at Bounce to lead communications and PR. Um, I would like Mr. Ankit Acharya to forward with the presentation. Let us wait for 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, Ankit, you can start.
Thank you, Surya. So, um, thank you everyone for spending time today on on a Sunday. I know it's incredibly tough as students to wake up on a Sunday and attend a session, but I'll try keeping it as interesting as possible and less complicated as possible. Most of the things that I'm going to share today are a part of the learnings that we as a company have also gone through. We have spent the better part of the last half a decade researching on electric vehicles, IC vehicles, and what it means to build a rugged scooter or a car for India. Coming back to the start of EV, or how did EV basically become mainstream across the world? It is slowly starting to pick up in India right now, but across the globe there have been multiple researches that have happened, especially in countries like US, China, Japan, Taiwan, etc. Now, a little background. EV is not a relatively new concept. It has been in existence as early as the 1900s. EV started primarily in the US, where it was at one point more popular than gasoline scooters. One third of all the cars that were sold back in the 1900s, they were EVs. So, out of, if I have to put numbers, about 4,000 odd vehicles were produced in the year 1900 in NYC, Boston, and Chicago. And out of that, about 28 to 30% of the scooters or the cars that were produced, primarily cars, were EVs. However, EV did not pick up back in the day. Some of the few reasons why it did not pick up was because of range anxiety. EVs back in the day did not have advanced technologies like regenerative battery system. It did not have batteries that could charge on themselves. It was basically like your Duracell battery, where you use it, you extinguish the charge, and you have to replace it with a new battery. So the cost of ownership or the cost of using an EV was pretty high back in the day. Obviously, those batteries were not capable enough to offer long ranges, so consumers had to rely on EV only for local transport or within the city in smaller kilometer radiuses. Um, about a century later, EVs are now again mainstream, especially in upcoming markets like India, for example. China and US have been leading on the EV front. Tesla is one of the biggest examples of EV revolution across the globe. Um, we all know that the future is electric, and there are a lot of steps involved in ensuring that this entire technology is future proof. So again, what exactly is an EV? It is there's no rocket science behind building an EV vehicle or the technology that goes behind it. Um, an EV is basically a vehicle. It's either a two-wheeler, a three-wheeler, or a four-wheeler, which operates either partially or fully powered by on electric. That's pretty much it. That's all what EV is about. Now, EVs are important. EVs are recognized across the globe for certain reasons. That is because EVs have low running costs compared to IC vehicles. Now, if you look at a scooter today, the cost of running a scooter per kilometer is anywhere between 2.5 to 3 rupees, depending on which city you stay in, obviously. But whereas if you take a EV, the cost of running the same scooter is under 1 rupee. Also coming to environmental hazards, EVs are less polluting compared to any other IC vehicle out in the market today. They have batteries which are important and form the heart of the scooter. Now, while we're coming to the battery of the electric vehicle, well, some manufacturers today still continue to use lead acid or nickel metal hydride batteries, but majority of the players have started moving to lithium ion batteries, which are soon going to form as the standard for electric vehicles in the market. Now, lithium-ion batteries are extremely important for the entire core of electric vehicles today. It is because they have greater life compared to lead acid or nickel metal. The retention charge that a battery holds is much higher in lithium ion. And obviously, the discharge rate is basically how much life of the battery you start losing every month. So in a lithium ion, it's as low as 2 to 3%. Now, Coming to the disadvantages or rather temporary setbacks of electric vehicles, it's super important to know that before jumping into advantages of EV. Now, finding a charging station is one of the most crucial reasons why EVs haven't become mainstream yet. There are long charging hours. The third thing is obviously the range anxiety of the scooter or the battery, higher upfront cost, and battery replacement. Now, the reason why we call this as temporary setbacks and not disadvantages is because all of the things that I've just mentioned are replaceable or are easily solvable. Now, coming to finding a station, with technology advancements, one thing that all of us have been able to crack is battery swapping. It's a relatively new term in India today, and this has been widely recognized by the government as well. Now, battery swapping helps reduce range anxiety. It helps uh, deploy batteries faster in the market. The range of the scooter obviously gets improved, and also the upfront cost of the scooter reduces drastically, or a car. Now, if I have to put numbers in place, if you decide to buy a EV scooter today in India with Bounce, for example, then you might have to shell out anywhere about 78,000 rupees. This is a scooter with a battery and a charger. Now, if you remove the battery component of the scooter, I am able to sell that scooter at as low as 38,000 rupees. This obviously includes all the FAME subsidies that the government gives. So, if you could understand the math, right, about 40 to 50% of the cost of the scooter is the cost of the battery. Now, removing that component altogether and making the scooter swappable or the battery swappable helps achieve all of these problems that are currently there in the market, or rather solve for these problems. Coming to the advantages of EV, obviously maintenance is much cheaper compared to IC vehicles. Now, if an IC vehicle takes about say 2 hours or 3 hours to get service, EV vehicle takes about 30 to 45 minutes. All you need to do is plug it into the VCU, and you exactly know which part needs what kind of attention. So the moving mechanical parts of any EV scooter is pretty low. In a standard maintenance, it's just the motor and the battery, and obviously, some perishable items like the brake oil that is changed. The rest, everything is controlled by the system. Environmentally, EVs have been known to be extremely friendly. They have less pollution. And also, we currently use renewable energy for charging all of these EVs. So we rely heavily on solar power for charging these scooters. Now, coming to noise free, obviously, this has been a constraint for some people, at least in India. At least our research says that people are not comfortable with scooters that don't make a noise. So currently, what companies are also trying to do is insert a fake module or a fake sound tone to every EV. But if you compare it against any of the IC vehicles today, the sound emission is pretty low, and EV vehicles are smoother to ride or drive. They don't have issues in terms of torque. They don't have issues in terms of acceleration. Um, End to end, it's a very smooth driving experience. Uh, Moving on to how EVs started. Now, Robert Anderson is also known as the father of EVs. He was the first one to come up with electric vehicle which was powered by non-rechargeable batteries. So, like I mentioned earlier, these are batteries which are more like use and throw. So you once you're done with the life of the battery, which is usually about 3 to 4 hours depending on the range. Back in the day, it was even lesser. So he was the one who gave rise to this entire concept of electric vehicle. EV started slowly becoming mainstream, like I mentioned earlier, around 1897 to 1900s. In 1897, taxis started to hit the streets of New York. This was the first time there was a large-scale American automobile player who was deploying, electric vehicles on the road. But due to constraints again around, charging hours, range anxiety, upfront costs, battery replacement costs, that also died down eventually. Around 1908 is when Ford came up with the first mass-produced gasoline vehicle, the one that you see on the screen right now. This had a profound effect on the automobile market, not only in the US but across the globe as well. I'm not sure if you guys have seen these vehicles, but they were used by a lot of government employees back in the day. Uh, from there, it was just the start of the journey. It took about half a decade to, identify what works, what doesn't work, and some players even took longer. Around 1990s,
आ गया देखो अभी
around 1988 was when General Motors or GM they decided to fund projects around EV, and that is when this car came up. This was called the EV1 back in the day, and it was also known as one of the world's most efficient produced vehicles. This hit the streets, and it had a good demand back in the day, but again, issues pertaining to range, issues pertaining to battery replacement resulted in this vehicle also dying down. In the year 2000, this was where Toyota decided to invest and also, start their research and development on EVs. Prius is a very popular car, not only in the US but across the globe. Even in India, people recognize Prius as a car that has been a part of the change. It was the first car that was widely accepted by celebrities, which helped raise the image of the car in the foreign markets. Uh, Toyota used a nickel metal hybrid battery, which was obviously not the best battery, which is obviously not the best battery today, but back in the day, this was supported by research from energy department. So that was the technology that was working back in the days. And Prius is still a car which is around and people still use it. There were obviously newer versions of Prius that also came in. Moving on, any questions so far?
Actually, we were having question and answer session at the end of presentation so that everyone can ask.
So there are three type of electric vehicles today in the market. Obviously, one out of the three is really popular now. There is the hybrid electric vehicle, which is powered by gasoline. There is the PHEV, that is plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, which is again powered by gasoline and also electricity, either from grid or from direct sources. And the last, which is the most popular one, it is the battery electric vehicle, which is 100% electricity from grid. Now, coming to each one of them separately, what is a hybrid electric vehicle? It's powered. The core of the vehicle is powered by an IC engine, but there's also an electric motor which uses energy stored in the battery. So if you can see the flow diagram there, the battery is the one that helps charge the electric motor. And this particular type of vehicle uses regenerative battery charging. Now, what is regenerative? It basically helps recover some of the kinetic energy that would otherwise, end up turning into heat. It converts it into electricity. This helps top up the battery range by a bit. Obviously, the battery range is not going to jump up from say 1% to 10% or 10 to 20%. It happens gradually, but it increases and it helps. And today, most of the vehicles that you see on the roads use regenerative battery charging as well. I mean, all the electric vehicles that are there in the market. Coming to plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, these use batteries to power an electric motor, which is again in the center image. But it also uses an alternate fuel, that is gas, to power the IC, the internal combustion engine. So these vehicles were not that popular, and today most of these vehicles are available on the street, but they're used for commercial purposes. People usually don't use it for private use cases. The last one is the battery electric vehicle, which is also called as the true electric. All the electric scooters that you see today, or all the Teslas of the world that you see today, rely on this technology. They are 100% electric vehicles. You can charge the vehicle either at your home or from the grid or any of the charging stations across. They the difference between the other two models and this is that they have an electric motor instead of a IC engine. So this helps to reduce the weight of the battery, and also helps transfer range better than any of the other models out there. Moving on to the next one. Now, coming to the hybrid electric vehicle, like I said, they're powered by IC engine and an electric motor. It uses the energy that is stored in batteries. The battery is again charged through regenerative braking. So every time you brake, there is some sort of a charge that comes back. It also comes with the fuel tank. So it's well, the problem with this vehicle is it essentially increases the weight of the chassis, or it increases the weight of the entire vehicle as a whole, reducing range and also causing some sort of anxiety in people. Next slide, please. Advantages of having a vehicle in this model is that it comes with regenerative braking. So essentially, you will always end up generating charge for your vehicle and increasing the range. Like I said, there are a lot of electric parts in the vehicle, so the efficiency is much higher. The reduced emissions is obviously key to all EVs out there. Coming to the disadvantages, given that there are so many moving mechanical parts in the vehicle, and there is so much of hardware that has gone into it, it increases the powertrain and also the complexity around the electronics of it. Now, the problem with a vehicle of this sort is if after sales, when it goes to a service center, it becomes increasingly difficult to identify which part of the vehicle needs attention. Uh, like I also mentioned earlier, the mass of the vehicle increases because of the additional components. It also reduces, the space that is available in the car, and increased cost due to additional components and complexity of the power management. So this is the upfront cost that you need to pay to acquire the vehicle. So say you acquire the vehicle for about 10 lakhs without all the complexity, you might have to spend another lakh or two to get it converted, get it registered, and again obviously recognized. So by the time you start seeing significant changes, it's only after you've recovered the cost of the vehicle. Moving on to the next one. The plug-in hybrid EV, which we spoke about, relies not only on batteries but also on alternate fuel. These are vehicles which were used back in the day as well. So back in the day, it was a different concept that was used. Now, if you all remember Maruti Omni back in the day, it used to have a toggle button. It used to be powered both by gasoline and both by fuel and also by gas. So this used to help people save cost. They could switch anytime they want. Same concept was adopted in the EV segment as well, where vehicles came with dual technology. One was being powered by the electric motor, which is the hub, or with a alternate fuel, that is either petrol or diesel to power the IC. These vehicles could be charged like any other EV vehicle that you see on the road. You can mount it on the wall, or rely on any of the charging network. Most of the EV vehicles in the market came with regenerative braking, so that helped maintain the charge level to a bit. The switch between battery and fuel happens only after the electric power runs off. The car automatically moves over to IC. So there is also a petrol tank which is present at the end of the vehicle, like any other normal vehicles. To the next one. So this is how a plug-in electric vehicle looks. It's as complicated as a hybrid vehicle. It again increases the mass of the vehicle, the complexity around the drivetrain increases, and like you can see, there are two charging ports. So one is for fuel and one is for charging your vehicle. Next. Okay, advantages of this vehicle. Again, zero emission because you're driving on battery. It's fuel efficient in traffic. In traffic, electric vehicles work best. Ease to drive is a very common phenomena across all electric vehicles. Nissan Leaf is one of the vehicles that was mass produced with this particular technology backing. Toyota Prius was also reintroduced with this model. There were very few units sold in India, but across the globe it did quite decent. Disadvantages of this vehicle is again they're expensive because the upfront cost of the vehicle is high, difficult to maintain. The service charges are also pretty high because now you are not only catering to the IC but you're also catering to the motor and the battery and the life of the battery, which has always been a concern that also existed back then. Next, cool. So battery electric vehicle, which is obviously my favorite and all of us. This is what we have been researching on for the last couple of years. An all electric vehicle is also referred to as a battery electric vehicle. All they have is an electric motor instead of an IC engine. So this reduces the complexity of the vehicle. It reduces the mass of the vehicle. We've been able to produce one of the lightest electric scooters in India today. It is about 90 to 91 kgs in weight. Plus, if you add the battery weight, which is about 12 kgs, it still makes it as one of the most compact and less heavy electric scooters out there. Now, the vehicle uses a large traction battery pack. It powers the electric motor and can either be plugged to a wall outlet or a charging equipment. What can also be done in a battery electric vehicle is there is a third form of charging which has just started to pick up, that is battery swapping. Now, battery swapping helps in a lot of ways because, like I said, if you all remember the disadvantages that we spoke about earlier, right? Finding a charging station, long charging hours, range of the vehicle, higher upfront cost, and battery replacement cost. Now, all of these issues are taken away with battery swapping. Now, battery swapping works in a very simple phenomena or with a simple um, if I have to reword it, right, the idea of having battery swapping is to make it as mainstream as refueling your vehicle when you go to a fuel bunk. All of these stations are usually present in apartment complexes, RWS, that is again smaller societies. It's also present in fuel bunks. It's present in basically areas which have high density of people. So all you need to do is go to that station, remove a battery from the station, put it in your scooter, remove the battery from the scooter and plug it back, and you're good to go. So this entire process takes under 3 minutes. All these stations across the globe come with batteries which are fully charged and ready to go. Now, depending on the form factor, you can decide how many batteries you need. So two-wheeler needs about one battery, three-wheeler needs about two batteries, and as you move on, your number of batteries increases. Currently, all manufacturers and energy infrastructure players are focusing only on.
Sorry for interruption, Mr. Ankit. You can continue.
Ankit, you are muted.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, Ankit.
Okay, all right. Coming back to battery swapping, so manufacturers are energy infrastructure. Today, supply batteries from the battery swapping network only to two-wheelers and three-wheelers. Four-wheelers are usually a little more complicated, so the type of batteries that are needed are different. Now, battery swapping works because you not only can set up stations for your own OEM or your own scooters, but you can also make it operable for other manufacturers. So, we, for example, have been working with other players in the market like battery ampere scooters, where all of these scooters will also come with a swappable battery. So, for the end consumer, they don't have to wait for their vehicles to get charged, or worry about the range of the scooter or any hazard around that. Moving on. Okay, so this is how an all-electric car looks like. Now, as you can see, it's less complicated than what you have seen earlier. It comes with a battery pack, which is right in the center of the vehicle. It comes with a traction motor, which is on the front part, very similar to how you see in your IC vehicle. It a converter converts Uh, the vehicle also comes with a electronics controller unit, which is also called as a VCU unit. It helps control the power output. It also helps identify what are the parts of the vehicle which have issues. One of the most important thing for any electric vehicle, whether it's two-wheeler, three-wheeler, or four-wheeler, is the cooling system that comes with it. The motor and the battery produce enough heat. Now, some of the heat is obviously converted into charge through regen, but most of the heat that is present within the vehicle, it gets cooled because of the thermal system that is located in the front vent of the vehicle. Other things like having an onboard charger, the charging port that you see on the right side of the vehicle. So as soon as you plug the charger over there, the onboard charger kicks in, and it helps calculate how much time is needed to charge the entire vehicle, and and give you daytime insights around it. It also helps charge the vehicle, which is the most important part today. Moving on. Actually, if you can just go back to the earlier slide. Really sorry. So unlike four-wheelers, if you have to take a two-wheeler, it's actually lesser complicated than this. The battery comes within the scooter. So where you put your helmet, you can put a battery over there. The cooling system is under the seat. The motor is usually either on the back tire or on the front part of the vehicle or in the center of the vehicle. Also, it depends from manufacturer to manufacturer. Ather has the hub or the motor in the center of the vehicle, while we have it in the back of the vehicle, that is in the rear tire of the vehicle. So on the two-wheeler, it gets even lesser complicated because you cannot keep adding multiple components to the scooter and increase the weight of the scooter or the complexity of the scooter. The cooling unit comes under the battery, so there is always a space for air to flow in and flow out. So it's much compact and much lesser complicated than any vehicle out there. Next. Okay, so coming to some of the components of electric vehicle which are important. They are the auxiliary battery, there is a charging port, there is a DC to AC converter, there is a electric traction motor, there is a traction battery pack, there is a onboard charger, there's a power electronics controller, which is also called as VCU by some people, the cooling system, and also the transmission system. Now, coming to the auxiliary battery, that's the core of the vehicle that provides electricity to power various parts of the vehicle, whether it's you're powering up your engine or powering up your lights. Everything is controlled by the auxiliary battery. Uh, the charging port, which is again used for charging the vehicle. Now they come in two types again. It's you either get a normal charger from the OEM from where you manufacture the vehicle, or there is also some of the OEMs support fast charging as an option. So depending on what type of charging your vehicle supports, you can go ahead with it. But fast charging, the issues with fast charging is it reduces the life of the battery drastically, which is why some of the manufacturers out there do not prefer using fast chargers. Now the cost of replacement of battery is obviously high, so in an end it helps you get it helps reduce the time for charging the vehicle, but also increases your cost of ownership of that vehicle probably 3 or 5 years down the lane. The converter, this device basically converts high voltage DC power from the battery pack to a lower voltage needed to run accessory. So the battery packs usually range from about 2.2 kilowatt hour, goes up to 3.5, or even 4 if you decide to use a double battery. So the power that is generated from that battery is pretty high. You need a converter to reduce the flow of current and run the various accessories present in the scooter, and obviously charge the primary battery that you are seeing above. There is a motor which is an electric traction motor. There are various manufacturers out there who produce these motors. Now one of the best ones out there is the Bosch motor, which we also use. Like I said, the motor can either be present at the back of the vehicle, in the center of the vehicle, or in the front of the vehicle, depending on the space available, the real estate space available on the scooter, or the need by the manufacturer. It uses the power from the auxiliary battery, and the motor drives the wheel. It's pretty much that, nothing else. Um there is a traction battery pack that stores electricity for use by the electric traction motor. Next. Okay. So the onboard charger, which we had visually seen earlier, it helps charge the vehicle via a charging point. Now, most of the vehicles that come today can be plugged into a normal 5 amp socket. You can charge the vehicle. It takes anywhere between, average of charging an electric vehicle is anywhere between 4 to 4.5 hours. Some of them do it faster, some of them do it slower. The onboard charger also communicates with the charging equipment. In our case, it also communicates with the IoT device that we place inside the scooter. So real life stats around voltage, current, temperature, battery health, scooter health can be seen live on the phone. So all of this happens real time with the IoT device that is present on the scooter. Okay. There is also the controller unit, or also the VCU, that manages the flow of electrical energy that is delivered by the primary battery or the traction battery. It controls the speed of the motor and also the torque it produces. So better the controller, better the torque, better the motor, better the torque. So all of these components work hand in hand to ensure that the vehicle produces maximum efficiency. Cooling system is one of the most important things in electric vehicle today. Unlike any other scooter that you see, the amount of heat produced because of the battery is much higher, which is why a lot of incidents that happen with electric scooters are vehicles catching fire, or miswiring causing accidents, or a thick flame of smoke coming out every time. I mean, and in cases where the temperature is extremely high. So if you go somewhere up north and you have to rely on an electric vehicle, it's very important for you to understand whether the vehicle comes with a cooling system or not. Lack of cooling system is extremely unsafe and can cause issues such as the vehicle catching fire itself. So it's important for that to be in place, and it's usually very close to the battery because that is where the maximum heat is being produced. This cooling system obviously helps maintain operating temperature range of the battery, electric motor, power electronics, and other components of the scooter. Now, which is why vehicles that are manufactured in India are manufactured according to Indian climatic conditions. Now, say for example, if you are purchasing a vehicle in a cooler country like Europe or Switzerland of the world, you might not essentially be able to use the same vehicle in Indian conditions because the vehicle design there is keeping their temperature in mind. So they don't see extreme temperatures like 50, 55 degrees like we see in India today. Uh, Transmission system, again, it transfers mechanical power from the electric traction motor to drive the vehicle. Most of the electric vehicles today are rear wheel drive vehicles. So the front part of the vehicle essentially transfers power to the rear end and the vehicle is good to go. Moving on. So coming to the part where, what does it take to build an EV? Now, the vehicle design process is extremely key to this entire, product or to this entire concept that we all are learning about today. And each of the things that you see here, we have personally done it back in Bounce as well. So the first part obviously is so here on the presentation we are talking about four-wheelers, but some of them I'm going to use some examples from two-wheelers and our learnings as well. When you design a vehicle, it's very important for you to keep certain things in mind. One is obviously how is the exterior of the vehicle going to look like, and how is the interior of the vehicle that's going to look like. Now, in two-wheeler cases, exterior is the exterior body, the outer body of this vehicle, and the interior part is usually the seats, the footrest, panels or the parts of the scooter where a consumer is going to be sitting. Exterior design is the first thing. We always start with the exterior design. These are done first. It starts with manual sketching, and then digital drawing kicks in. Before the first vehicle is produced, there is a clay model that is used for this process. In fact, we have a beautiful clay model that is, made ready and is available in our Bhiwadi plant in Rajasthan. So if you all ever get an opportunity to come down, we'd love to show you around and, everything that has gone behind building that clay model. It's a very fine model of the scooter that we have currently launched in the market. Um, for interior designing, obviously the shape of the inside part of the vehicle, whether it is the seats, whether it is a dashboard, whether it's your different components that come with the vehicle, right? All of those. In a case of a scooter, it's less complicated. It's the seat, which is the most important part, followed by the bonnet where you keep the helmet. So these are only the two main parts. So keeping the seat comfortable and ergonomically comfortable for the end user is what is important. Now, in a case of a scooter, what is also important is when you're making the seat, it's important to see if the front handle does justice. So if you are a slightly taller person, you shouldn't feel uncomfortable. If you're a slightly shorter person, you shouldn't feel uncomfortable. So the design of the handle has to be optimal for every end user, every different use cases, different type of people, and obviously it shouldn't touch your knee while you're turning. So various things are kept in mind before designing that part. Um, the color, contrast, texture, pattern, all of them happen hand in hand. There is always a different team that focuses on finding out what color works in the market. whether it's the pop culture, whether it's the dark theme, whether it's a light theme. So it all depends on market, and usually the last part of what you see in this particular slide is determined by a lot of market study, and only then you realize that okay, these are the colors that are going to work in the market. Our learnings have said that red, black, and white work best. People primarily love these colors, but there is also a trend for pop colors that have come in, so we're introducing that as well. Moving on to the next one. So this is a layout of how front wheel drive vehicle looks. Now, before any vehicle is produced, it goes through a lot of prototyping stage. We have personally, built up to 15 prototypes where we have tried different forms. One is obviously having a front wheel drive. One is with a back wheel drive. One is a model where four wheel drive. So uh, we wanted to understand what vehicle works best, what vehicle performs better on the roads, which is why a lot of prototypes were made. Also, what manufacturers do is, from global counterparts, we import vehicles from those countries to understand what is working in those vehicles as well. So there is reverse engineering done on those vehicles as well to get the maximum output out of this entire research. Now, in the front wheel drive, the engine and the differential or and the transmission are all on the front part of the vehicle. So they power the front wheels and the vehicle moves. Not that popular, but yeah, a lot of vehicles do come with this. Next. This is the rear wheel drive, which is also pretty common in a lot of EV scooters, EV bikes today. The drive shaft is in the center of the vehicle that controls the entire movement. The differential is at the rear of the vehicle. The transmission obviously happens from the front of the vehicle, given that the engine is right there. The torque produced or the energy produced rotates the rear wheel, which helps the vehicle move. Next. This is a four-wheel drive vehicle, very popular in India for people who like to go off-roading. It's not a daily use vehicle of sorts, but if you all remember the Fortuner of the world or the Endeavors of the world, they all used to come with four-wheel drive. Now, the rear differential stays at the back, the transmission and engine stay in the front. The only change here is there's a front differential as well, which helps power both sides of the vehicle. So essentially, the power generator is much higher than either a front wheel drive or a back wheel drive. Next. Very similar to what we spoke earlier. We can move on. Right. So the chassis is one of the first things that any manufacturer designs before getting into the core of building the scooter or identifying the components of the scooter. New vehicle concepts, they can be futuristic as they like, but without a light, strong, and cost-effective body structure, they are very unlikely to see the light of the day. So what exactly is the chassis and why is it important? So for us, the chassis forms as the most important part of the vehicle, probably more important than the battery itself. It is the part of the vehicle which provides the basic frame where all the parts are screwed and protected. The reason why a chassis is very important is because it helps understand the load capacity of the vehicle, how much can the vehicle take. A standard electric scooter like ours can take anywhere about 250 to 300 kgs of weight. The chassis also helps understand the ruggedness of the scooter, whether it would be able to handle speed bumps, whether it would be able to handle potholes. In cases of accidents, what is the maximum damage that can happen? Tatas of the world are known to come up with the best chassis. So if you've seen incidents happen, you will always see the chassis getting least affected in a Tata vehicle because of the amount of R&D that has gone behind building that. Personally, at Bounce Infinity, we started with a blank sheet when we had to work on our chassis. We had no legacy in the OEM space, and we did not have data that OEMs have today to build that right chassis. But for all those who don't know, we started as a Doppler scooter sharing company, and we still operate that business where users can book a scooter from the phone. They can pick up a scooter from A location, drop it at B location. So essentially, we have a new set of users using our vehicles on a day-to-day basis, and these vehicles are both IC and electric. In IC, we work with Ampere, Activa, Axis of the world. Sorry, in IC we work with Activa, Axis, all of these vehicles, and in electric we work with Ampere. Now, how has this helped us? It has helped us collect user data, so we exactly understand ride patterns, we understand behavior of users. We have data of over 30 million rides that have happened in the last 3 years, 3.5 years of business. And this is about 240 million cumulative kilometers that we've clocked. All of this data being generated from a user base of over 6 million users today. Now, this has helped us understand various riding styles, and usually the chassis is designed around that. It depends on people to people, from city to city. Most of the vehicles go through rigorous testing in different climatic conditions to see if the chassis could handle the weight. This is usually made from metal, but there are other components also used here and there, and a lot of R&D going on improving the life of the chassis or the health of the chassis without increasing the weight of the body. Uh, so all in all, chassis extremely important. If any of you are ever looking at making an electric vehicle, focus on the chassis because this helps or this makes or breaks things. Next. Steering system is it's a very similar thing as an IC vehicle. It helps now maneuver your vehicle or steer the car. There is a rack and pinion steering system which is usually used in all the vehicles. There is a rod which is the tie rod. It connects to each end of the rack. The gear or the pinion gear is attached to the steering shaft. When you turn the gear, when you turn the steering wheel, the gear spins, it moves the rack, and the vehicle moves towards that direction. Very similar to a scooter as well. Scooter also has a handle. The concept behind this is very similar to what you see in a four-wheeler today. Next. So this is what the rack and pinion gear set does. It converts the rotational motion of the steering wheel into the linear motion that is needed to turn the wheels. Provides a gear reduction so that you can easily turn the wheels compared to other vehicles. Next. Camber angle, it's one of the angles made by the wheel of a vehicle. Specifically, it is the angle between the vertical axis of the wheel and the vertical axis of the vehicle. This primarily helps with suspension and steering system. Suspension, again, is core of any vehicle today. So it helps maneuver around that. Next. Okay, the caster angle, this is the displacement angle of the steering wheel from the vertical axis. As you can see in the picture, there is a positive caster, which is about which is straight. There is a neutral caster, and there is obviously a negative caster. Next. So toe angle can be determined in two ways. If the toe angle is placed this way, it is positive. If it's placed towards the outer side, it's negative. This helps understand whether the vehicle is center-aligned or not. Next. Like we spoke earlier, the suspension is again key to the vehicle. These are attached to the core chassis of the vehicle. It's a system of multiple components, not restricting only to the main frame, but it also includes tires, springs, shock absorbers, and linkages. So a lot of components are dependent on the suspension for a smooth movement and related motion between the two. In vehicles, in four wheelers, you do get the option of additional shock absorbers, which you easily get it off market. In two wheelers, it's usually not the case. It's available only for four wheelers as such, but it helps reduce the tension between the tire and the body of the vehicle. Next. Okay, that's my time. If any of you guys have questions, would be happy to take those.
So I would like participants to unmute yourself and ask some questions, whether you're having any doubts. Like one by one, ask questions, and Mr. Ankit will try to answer those.
What we can do is, if you have a question, please raise your hands and we will call your name. Then you can ask your questions. Okay, Naveen, you can ask your question.
What is a toe angle, negative and positive? What does it make a difference?
Sorry, I'm losing you.
Toe angle, sir.
Okay. So toe angle is basically the front wheel of the vehicle, right? Whether it is positioned towards the center end. If it's the center end of the vehicle, that means the vehicle is going to move smoothly towards the front. If it's towards the outside end of the vehicle, the balance between the vehicle usually doesn't help. Now, in cars, it's much complicated. So, there's a lot of wheel balancing that happens in the front, but the ideal way. So, if you look at any vehicle right now, the vehicle is always designed in a angle where the tires move towards each other towards the front part. So, it helps maneuver the vehicle smoothly. It points towards the center line of the vehicle.
In parallel.
Okay, so is your question done, Mr. Naveen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, then Lalit, you may unmute yourself and ask the question.
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि मतलब जैसे जो गियर बॉक्स होता है और जितने भी जैसे इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल्स आ रही हैं इस टाइम की वो सारी ऑटोमेशन होती हैं और जैसे जो गैसोलीन कार्स में अगर वो लगा होता है क्या कहते हैं गियर सिस्टम उसमें हम कर सकते हैं कि नहीं कर सकते हैं इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल का तो उसके क्या गियर सिस्टम हमें चेंज करना पड़ेगा या उसी में हो जाएगा
So अभी that's actually a very good question. हम लोग in fact बहुत सारे बना रहे हैं
लो
जिस केस में एक एग्जिस्टिंग व्हीकल का कोई भी पार्ट चेंज नहीं होता. द ओनली थिंग दैट चेंजेस इज दैट वी हैव टू ऐड एन एडिशनल कंपोनेंट दैट्स अ मोटर एंड द बैटरी. बट हमारा रिसर्च बोलता है कि यू डोंट हैव टू make any significant changes to the core of the vehicle. So the gear system can also continue to stay. In fact, हमने there is a scooter called there is a bike called Boxer, and there is obviously a lot of Yamaha vehicles जो आपके पेट्रोल व्हीकल्स है गियर वाले व्हीकल्स उनको हमने कन्वर्ट किया है ईवी में एंड विदाउट एनी सिग्निफिकेंट चेंजेस. इट टेक्स अबाउट 2 से 3 घंटा एंड विद अ फ्यू वायरिंग्स डन इट्स इज एज गुड एज एन आईसी व्हीकल.
अच्छा अगर मतलब जैसे कि हमारे पास अगर कार है गैसोलीन वाली तो अगर हम उसमें मोटर और उसके पावर कन्वर्टर्स के वो कर दें तो मतलब गियर सिस्टम हमें नहीं चेंज करना पड़ेगा मतलब
in scooters in bikes two wheelers अलग होता है, in four wheelers अलग होता है. Four wheelers में भी a lot of hybrid vehicles are coming in, like आपने अगर टाटा नेक्सॉन भी देखा होगा तो उसमें दोनों फ्यूल ऑप्शन भी आता है और इलेक्ट्रिक ऑप्शन भी आता है. And they've been able to achieve it without changing the gear structure of the vehicle, because at the end of the day it's all about the power output that comes to the
और सर बेसिकली अगर हम पूरी सोलली इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल बना रहे हैं, हम उसका जैसे इंजन हटा के मोटर तब उस टाइम पे बात कर रहा हूँ कि तो हमें वही गियर सिस्टम पे मतलब काम हो जाता है या हमें चेंज करना होता है कि ऑटोमेशन ही देना होगा?
जो स्टॉक वाला है उसमें थोड़ा चेंजेस करना पड़ता है क्योंकि स्टॉक में इट्स ऑलवेज इंक्लाइंड टुवर्ड्स इलेक्ट्रिक सॉरी गैसोलीन रिक्वायरमेंट्स चेंजेस होता है. दीज आर मोस्टली अराउंड वायरिंग, नॉट लाइक कि आपको पूरा पार्ट निकाल के रिप्लेस करना पड़ेगा.
अच्छा, मतलब कुछ पार्ट्स उसमें से रिप्लेस करना होगा, क्योंकि जैसे टाटा नेक्सॉन में नॉब दी जाती है, बस नॉब से कंट्रोल करना होता है उसकी स्पीड और इन सबको.
करेक्ट. रेट्रोफिटिंग, इसको रेट्रोफिटिंग बोलते हैं. तो रेट्रोफिटिंग में द कॉम्प्लिकेशंस.
हाँ, रेट्रोफिटिंग ही बोलते हैं मतलब एक्चुअली आपने तो हाथ ही पकड़ लिया है.
तो हम भी रेट्रोफिटिंग करते हैं बैंगलोर में. उसमें इट टेक्स अबाउट 15 to 20,000 rupees to retrofit an Activa, and in 2 to 3 hours the scooter is as good as ready. तो आपको सिर्फ टॉगल करना पड़ता है between fuel and between electric. Rest सारे components remain the same. Only difference you will see is the sound. So if you're in petrol, you can hear the sound of an Activa. When you move to an electric vehicle, आपको वो sound नहीं आता. It's a very smooth ride.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, so after your question is done, please lower your hand. Now, Mr. Pratik, you may ask a question.
सर मैं ये पूछना चाहता हूँ सर कि जो इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल होती है उनकी जो पिकअप ना कम होता है एज कम्पेयर टू पेट्रोल एंड डीजल, सर व्हाई?
इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल्स अगेन, आप स्कूटर के बारे में बोल रहे हो, कार के बारे में बोल रहे हो?
सर स्कूटर एंड कार मैंने देखा है सर, जो अभी लॉन्च हो रही है जैसे महिंद्रा की, जैसे स्कूटी वगैरह जो भी है सर इलेक्ट्रिक में, उनका पिकअप सर इतना ज्यादा नहीं है, मतलब 40 उससे ऊपर है ही नहीं सर उनका पिकअप.
दैट इज एक्चुअली अ मिसकंसेप्शन. तो अगर आप परफॉर्मेंस इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल्स देखें जैसे ओला और एथर टुडे, उनका पिकअप इज मच बेटर देन प्रीवियस. Okay, it completely depends on the type of battery that you use. Now, a standard battery, जैसे हमारा scooter है, it's not a performance scooter, but it is a everyday use scooter. It uses a 2.2 kilowatt hour battery. Now, उसके output के हिसाब से we get a decent pickup, obviously not in the likes of Ather, but Ather, which comes with a heavier battery pack, it offers a better pickup compared to any of the fuel scooters. In fact, हमने comparison भी किया है electric vehicle against fuel vehicles. If not better, then at least electric vehicles, some of the models today in India are in par with any fuel scooters there. The reason why most of the vehicles are underpowered today is because today about 80%, 80 to 85% of the vehicles जो इंडिया में बनते हैं और इंडिया में बिकते हैं rather, they are imported from China. So the BOM cost of the scooter is already high because it's being imported, which is why manufacturers try to do away with giving a low powered battery. Now, low powered battery obviously reduces a lot of things for the end consumer, but with battery technologies coming in, with lithium ion batteries coming in smaller shapes and forms, this might be a problem of the future. In fact, we are planning to build a scooter which is going to be a performance scooter, which might be probably faster than an Activa. You never know. But electric vehicles, if you look at Ather and Ola, they give a top speed of about 115, 120 today, which is pretty good for beginning. And Indian roads में ऐसे भी 50 या 60 से ज़्यादा कोई जा भी नहीं सकता. So what is the point of having a vehicle that gives you 120, 130? It's extremely unsafe.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so Mr. Nakude, please unmute and ask
यस
the
सर यस सर मेरा क्वेश्चन आपसे ये है कि जो हम इलेक्ट्रिकल व्हीकल जो बना रहे हैं उसका जो है उसका लिमिटेशन क्या रहेगा?
Limitations as in what exactly do you mean by limitations? क्या problems के बारे में आप जानना चाहते हैं?
हाँ, वन हावर पर कितनी रफ्तार से वो चलेगी,
तो
ऐसा लिमिटेशन?
ऐसा कोई limitations नहीं है as such, जितना तक आपका बैटरी का जब तक से फॉर एग्जांपल 80% बैटरी खत्म हो चुका है, तब तक 80-90% ऑफ द बैटरी खत्म हो चुका है, वो तब तक 60, 65, 70, 80 तक जा सकती है डिपेंडिंग ऑन द टाइप ऑफ द स्कूटर. अगर लाइक आई सेड परफॉर्मेंस इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल है जैसे ईथर ओला, इट कैन टच अप टू 100, 110, 120. एज एंड व्हेन वो 80% क्रॉस कर जाता है, लाइक डिप्लेशन 80% क्रॉस कर जाता है, द परफॉर्मेंस ऑफ द स्कूटर स्टार्ट्स टू रिड्यूस बट नॉट significantly. Most of the electric vehicles that are in the market today, they come in two different okay, they come in two different.
ओके सर, थैंक यू.
Yeah, thanks. Next.
Okay, so now Mr. Mohammed, you may ask the question.
Yes, sir. My question is the big problem in EV electric vehicles in don't fast charge. So how do I fast charge in EV?
So if I mention if you remember, I mentioned earlier, right? There are multiple modes for a EV to be charged, whether it is through physically charging the EV with a slow charger जो आपके घर पे है, या relying on a fast charger, or the third thing is battery swapping. Now the reason why fast charging is वो इतना पिकअप नहीं किया है और इंडिया में इतना ज़्यादा मेन स्ट्रीम नहीं है, क्योंकि उसके लिए आपको इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर सेट करना पड़ेगा फॉर फास्ट चार्ज. आपके इट्स नॉट लाइक योर फोन चार्जर जो फास्ट चार्जिंग सपोर्ट में आता है. दे वर्क ऑन द सेम टेक्नोलॉजी, बट जो पावर रिक्वायरमेंट होता है इट्स मच हायर, विच इज वाई infrastructure players like us are building the entire ecosystem for charging. Fast chargers are expensive. They're extremely expensive to set up. So usually people don't prefer spending an additional 15-20,000 to purchase that charger. The second thing is it reduces the life of the battery. पहले बोला था, if you every battery or every lithium ion battery has anywhere about 1600 to 2000 cycles. That is the full charge cycle that I'm talking about. Now अगर आप बार बार fast charge करते रहोगे, the life of the battery comes down, which is why अगर आप fast charging phone में slow charging करोगे, then also effect होता है battery पे. If you use something like a Samsung which doesn't support fast charging, but you plug it in with a fast charger, the phone might charge soon, but also the battery of the mobile gets affected. Same reason यहाँ पे भी है. Now phone के case में you can replace the battery probably at 500,000, 1,500 depending on the brand, or if it is an Apple or Samsung you might have to pay a few thousand more. But in a vehicle you have to end up spending around 30-35,000 rupees. And most of the electric vehicles today that are produced in India, even slow charging में वो 3 घंटे में charge हो ही जाता है. So people prefer charging overnight. Now with swappable batteries coming in, वो anxiety ही चला जाएगा, क्योंकि हम लोग आपको batteries fully charged हमेशा देंगे. So आपको rely भी नहीं करना पड़ेगा fast charging के लिए. You don't even have to waste that 15-20 minutes. But nevertheless, almost all the scooters that are present in the market today, the good scooters present in the market today, come with fast charging support, including our vehicles as well.
Thank you.
Okay, now Mr. Mohammed Talha, you may ask your question.
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था कि सबसे पहले तो हाय हाउ आर यू सर
I'm doing good, thank you so much. How are you?
मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था कि जब बैटरी डिस्चार्ज होती है तो मतलब डिस्चार्ज होने पे ऐसा कौन सा लेवल होता है, मतलब कौन सी परसेंटेज होती है जिसपे इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल की परफॉर्मेंस कम होने लगती है, लाइक उसकी परफॉर्मेंस में कोई कमी पड़ती है जब बैटरी डिस्चार्ज होने लगती है?
Okay, so this again depends on the manufacturer. So every electric vehicle is controlled. हर part of the vehicle can be controlled by the manufacturer. जैसे हमारे केस में हमने देखा है कि about 80-90% depletion के बाद भी the scooter is performing in the same way. Now, the reason behind that is the scooters come with two modes primarily. All manufacturers today try to give that. One is the performance mode and one is the eco mode. Now, eco mode में say for example आप 90% depletion हो गया, आपके बैटरी का चार्ज खत्म हो गया, and you want to reach that last 2, 3, 4, 5 kilometers, whatever it is. Moving to eco mode reduces the performance of the scooter. That means your top speed gets capped at say 40, 45, whatever the manufacturer has said. So the depletion starts towards the last 5 to 10% of the life of the battery and not usually between 0 to 90, 95%.
सर मेरा नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन ये था कि लेट्स से कि अगर बैटरी में कोई फॉल्ट आ जाता है, ऑन बोर्ड कोई ऐसा बैकअप होता है कि हम अपने मतलब फाइनल डेस्टिनेशन तक पहुंचना चाहें और वो हमें आसानी से ले जाए?
If I can just अंडरस्टैंड योर क्वेश्चन प्रॉपर्ली, आप बोल रहे हो कि अगर बैटरी में कोई इश्यू होता है देन ऑन बोर्ड डायग्नोसिस के बारे में पूछ रहे हो या रोड?
ऑन बोर्ड कोई मतलब इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल में ऑन बोर्ड कोई ऐसा बैकअप मौजूद होता है कि वो हमें फाइनल डेस्टिनेशन तक ले जाए या वहीं पे हमारी इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल रुक जाएगी? लाइक हमारे पास हाइब्रिड में तो ये पॉसिबिलिटी है ना कि हमारा स्विचिंग हो जाती है.
वेरी ब्लंट आंसर, अगर कोई इश्यू होता है इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल वहीं पे रुक जाएगी आपकी. लाइक आई सेड, एन ऑल बैटरी इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल रिलाइज ओनली ऑन द बैटरी. तो यूजुअली अगेन कमिंग बैक टू बैटरी स्वैपिंग, राइट नाउ, अगर आपका स्कूटर कम्स विद एन इनबिल्ट बैटरी देन इट इज डिफिकल्ट टू इमीडिएटली रेक्टिफाई व्हाट हैज हैपेंड, बिकॉज आपको बॉडी पैनल्स खोलने होता है, बैटरी को निकालना होता है, या वो फुटबोर्ड के नीचे होता है डिपेंडिंग अगेन. बट बैटरी स्वैपिंग के केस में अगर आपका बैटरी खराब हो जाता है, आप बैटरी निकालो, हब में डालो और एक बैटरी लो एंड यू आर गुड टू गो. एंड every major city will have swapping stations in about 1 to 1.5 kilometers. So the possibility of you facing a downtime is much lower in that case. But say आपके पास ये सारे options नहीं है, then आपका downtime होगा for sure. You will be stuck over there.
Thank you so much, sir.
Mr. Prateek, you may ask your question.
Sir, my question is that the replacement cost of battery is too much high.
Correct.
Yeah, sir. So how we overcome in electric vehicle and how we overcome, sir?
Our understanding of batteries has been all the research that we have done, all the kilometers जो हमने चलाया है vehicles को for the last 5 years. In fact, हमारे नए scooters have also undergone testing for about 1 lakh kilometers in different climatic conditions. Now, one thing we have understood is for 4 to 4.5 years or about 5 years, nothing happens to the life of the battery. As in, depletion hota hai at a rate of say 1%, 2% every month. But after a point, it gets capped out. It's very similar to a phone also. So if any of you use iPhones today, you can go to settings and see the battery health. It'll be, if it's a 1-year-old phone, it'll be at 75, 80%. Mine is at 80% right now. तो इट कम्प्लीटली डिपेंड्स ऑन द यूज केस. नाउ अगर आपके घर पे इन्वर्टर लगा है, वो बैटरीज भी सालों साल चलती है, राइट? ऑल यू हैव टू डू इज ऐड डिस्टिल्ड वाटर, and do basic, AMC or health check around it, and you're good to go. Uh, Similar concept in vehicles also. Abhi issues are here, but I don't see it as a long-term issue. At least from our end, we are confident that the batteries that are delivered will have a good enough life. But if I have to, talk as a manufacturer and tell you what you need to do to improve the battery life, one thing is, if possible, drive in eco mode always. Eco mode helps reduce battery consumption to the max. It caps the top speed. Within a city limit, it's extremely comfortable to drive in eco mode because it gives you speed up to 40-45 kmph. Um, the second thing is do not charge the battery again and again. जैसे हम लोग phones के साथ करते हैं, it's an extremely unhealthy thing to do कि whenever you see 2% कम हो गया, we'll go and plug it in. And then the third thing is don't try different type of charging modes. Like the reason why my iPhone has 75 or 80% life left is because I experiment with it. I use different type of chargers. I use wireless chargers. I use my car charger. I use my car wireless charger. I use my phone wireless charger. So if you keep using different type of chargers, that also affects the health of the battery because every time there is a different input that is going inside this. So, say for example, if you want to stick to fast charging, stick to fast charging. If you want to stick to socket charging, stick to that. Battery swapping, anyways, is standardized, so there is only one type of charging happens there. But these are the top three things that you need to do to maintain the life of the battery, or ensure that you don't have to replace it after say 3.5, 4 years, or 5 years. Does that answer your question?
ओके सर सर एक लास्ट क्वेश्चन सर कि देयर इज अ some cities have a shortage of power consumption, and then that's why electric vehicle, how can we run on that cities, and facing a problem, shortage of power in villages and some districts, that is not possible of electric vehicle in those cities, sir.
Where do you come from? Which city do you come from?
Sir, I am from Gurgaon.
Gurgaon. Okay. So this is actually a misconception that we have been fighting with since a long time, where we have always been. When we entered the OEM business, we were told that the demand for electric vehicles would be lower in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities because penetration वहाँ पे कम है, electricity कम है, and all the facades around that, right? But the data doesn't say the same. So out of all the bookings that we have received in the last 3 months, these are pre-bookings that I'm talking to you about. We have received bookings from close to 7,500 pin codes across India, out of which close to 70% of the bookings, or 60% of the bookings rather, are from tier 1 cities, and balance 40% of the bookings are from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. Now, why this is working is because people have not accepted the fact that there is no electricity in their city or town or wherever they are. There are alternate modes of power as well that they rely on. Some like solar energy is something that is extremely popular in some of these cities and towns. And most of these cities and towns are now getting powered up, right? If you can charge your phone, which phone is a device which is with everyone today, right? You can also charge a scooter. In smaller cities, like for example, in the southern part of India, what we have done is there is a small city called Hassan, and in that city, we have started setting up battery swapping stations. These battery swapping stations will be powered by solar energy, which in turn will charge the batteries, and it's good to go for the end consumer. A similar concept can be easily deployed in any city or town. Now, the smaller the city, easier it is for us to deploy, because the total radius of the city would be about 7 to 10 kilometers. So even if I set up 10 battery swapping stations covering the entire radius, everyone in that particular town will be able to rely on the network. So that way, I see this misconception of electric vehicle adoption not happening in tier 2, 3, 4, or rather 3, 4, 5 cities. That I see that changing slowly. And in fact, uh, one of the very interesting things that happened a few weeks back was one of our scooters was being tested in the outskirts of Chennai, and there was a farmer who came, and he saw the scooter, and he's like, "This is a really good scooter. Is it an electric scooter?" And we have an entire recording of this thing. And he says that the scooter looks very expensive. It must be about 2.5 lakhs. And when we told him the actual price of the scooter, that it starts at about 40,000 rupees, his first thing is that I'm going to buy one because I feel that the scooter is for us. So we are seeing more and more people getting adapted to EV, and obviously, the increase in fuel cost. Some data predicts that in the next quarter or so, the fuel prices might touch about 150 rupees a liter. Uh, with prices as exorbitant as that, the only alternate is to rely on modes of commute like EV.
Yeah, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so now Mr. Gaurav Kashyap, you may ask your question. Hello. Okay, so I think Mr. Gaurav is having some difficulty. So, Miss Falguni, you may ask your question. Okay, so I think they both. Then Mr. Akruta Sharma.
I'm Miss Akrita Sharma.
Sorry, Miss Akruta Sharma, you may ask your question.
Yes. So you mentioned that by changing the chargers, the battery life is getting more saved than the usual method of using the same charger. Why is it that so? What do they use in that battery that makes it to when it relies on many other chargers, it is having its lifetime saved, but with the same charger, it's not. And even the mobile manufacturers would want the same charger to be used according to their company. Why would they do that?
Yeah, that is, I think there is some confusion. That is what I said. What I meant was you need to stick to one form of charging. I'm not saying one form of the charger at the end of the day. Now, what I'm saying is, say, if you're using a slow charger, continue using a slow charger for charging your battery. If you're using a fast charger, continue using a fast charging. What I meant to say was don't mix between slow charging, fast charging continuously, because that depletes the life of the battery. Because at one time the battery is used to charging at a particular speed, and the other time you accelerate the speed. That creates an imbalance between the cells that are there in the battery.
So slow charging and fast charging, what does it mean, sir, exactly?
So slow charging is the standard charger that you get with any battery today. It can charge your battery, say between a full charge can take up to 3.5 to 4 hours. In fast charging, it charges your battery faster. So the output that comes is much higher. So it can charge your battery, say, in 1.5 hours. So the time
So,
saved is different, which is why, sorry.
so one last question. If the chassis would be made from plastic material instead of metals, because it's very less abundant now, and many people are relying on plastic as substitute. If we create some kind of a polymer which is of plastic and some kind of a mixture of something like that, would it work? A
Uh,
light plastic.
okay, so
the chassis could be made of that, sir, because it would be lightweight and it would be easy to manufacture also.
Correct. So plastic in chassis is, as of today, it's used in four-wheelers, but only in certain parts of the chassis. The reason is obviously plastics have, higher stiffness, lower cost than metal and everything around it, right? It's also lighter for the entire vehicle. But like I said, the main issue today is the heating of the battery that happens. So in any vehicle, that part of the vehicle gets heated the max. So uh, we honestly haven't done any research on it, but our understanding says that the current plastic polymers that are available in the market, or there are very, very handful of people doing it. No, probably no one in India has experimented with it yet. The plastic is not going with the heat. It's not able to support the heat. And the other thing is the stiffness of the plastic at the core of the scooter might be great, but whether it will be able to handle the load of about 300, 400 kgs, right? Because in India, if you look at vehicles or if you look at scooters, scooter is designed for two people, but you can see 4, 5 people also sitting on the scooter, right? Now, the manufacturer always keeps that in mind while building the scooter. If the scooter can take a payload of up to say 300, 350 kgs, then it's worth experimenting. But as of now, we at least haven't seen anything that has worked for the current set of vehicles that we have designed. Also, the other thing that happens is if like I mentioned, right, plastic is already pretty lightweight. Now, if I make a vehicle with a plastic chassis, that is going to reduce the weight of my scooter even further. It's around 92 kgs now. Probably it will come down by another 30, 40 kgs. So essentially, the scooter would be an extremely lightweight scooter, which would again, cause issues around the handling of the scooter, movement of the scooter. So all of that, if it can be replaced by additional weight or superficial weight, it might work.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. Thank you.
I'm sorry, but due to some time constraints, we will have to end the Q&A session here. And if you have some other questions, you may contact, you can send your emails to contact@ninthsem.com.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your time.
Okay, now
I would like to thank Mr. Ankit on behalf of Composite IIT Kharagpur and NinthSem for his valuable insights on electric vehicles.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
sir.
very much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Moving on, we are having one more host speaker, Miss Nishita Balias Singh. She is co-founder and CEO of Nexus Power. I would like Miss Nishita Balias Singh to speak and move on with the presentation. Let us wait for a minute.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me here. So I'm Nishita Balyasingh, and I represent Nexus as the co-founder and the CEO. And so my discussion for today is mostly on entrepreneurship opportunities in the EV industry. And so let's get started. Maybe I'll give you a little brief about how the EV industry functions. I'm sure you've been on this since the morning and you've had a lot of idea about the technical side. So I'll tell you more about how the EV industry functions and what the structure is. Now from the look of it, from the outer side, it really seems very fascinating, and we've seen a lot of EV manufacturers come up. And that's the reason why I want to come up with a kind of a topic which speaks more about the entrepreneurship opportunities in the EV segment. Typically, because if you look at the kind of EV manufacturers in India today, there are about 400 plus registered EV manufacturers who are purely into the three-wheeler and two-wheeler EVs. And so that obviously gives you an understanding of how crowded this market is. But if you go ahead from there and try to look into the depth of the entire industry, understand the opportunities that are available, you would actually realize that beyond just manufacturing the EVs, the electric vehicles, there are a lot more opportunities in that industry itself, which are more important than just the EV vehicle. For example, say the charging stations or the battery swap technology, so the battery swapping stations. So they are ideally more important than the electric vehicle itself, because that's what powers the electric vehicle. If you look at the IC engine industry, the diesel petrol industry, you have plenty of petrol pumps across the country. You will never face a problem of refueling your car, petrol or diesel, even on the long run highways. Like even if I'm traveling from Mumbai to Goa, 7-8 hours drive, I have petrol pumps all through the way, and I could keep filling my car as many times as I want. But the same situation is not with the EVs. You will actually really have to calculate whether there is a station. There's a possibility of recharging somewhere in between if I run out of charge. If that's not there, I actually have to head back or maybe call for assistance or whatever. So that loophole is, there is a big loophole there, and that's something that has to be covered up. So my point is, when you talk about opportunities in the EV industry, a lot of people end up on the EV manufacturing side only. See, there are still gaps on the EV manufacturing side. I will agree to it. We have two-wheeler manufacturers, we have three-wheeler manufacturers, we have four-wheeler, we have trucks, buses, we have everything. But I agree that there are some scope of improvement. Like, even after you had Ather, you still have Ola, you have Simple, you still have Bounce, and you have more manufacturers. Agreed. But the fact is that space of manufacturing EVs is now slightly getting saturated. So until and unless you do not have a huge financial backing, which can, give you outright advertisement and with a lot of reach and plenty of bookings and a lot of money spent on advertisement, until you don't have that kind of a resource, it's difficult to compete with the existing market in the manufacturing side. Where the difference.
Sorry for interruption. Just a minute.
Sorry. So typically, where the difference lies is you look at the entire infrastructure, the part that actually drives the EVs. There you have a lot of scope, in fact. Not only on the charging stations or the battery swapping technologies or the battery technologies. Now you look at each and every component that goes into making the electric vehicle. So when you start looking at each and every component in depth, you realize that each and every component can be manufactured on its own, and that itself will be at least a 1,000 or 2,000 crore industry in the long run when it's an EV revolution. Starting from, say, the simplest motors, your hub motors, the BLDC motors, the kind of configuration that goes into making the vehicles. So only, if you're only a motor manufacturing company for the EVs and not making the EVs, only the electric motor which powers this EV, which is actually the heart and brain and engine for the EVs, you are already in a market which is about 5,000 crores. That is the structure, because it is only one component that goes into the EV. Similarly, you look at the other components, something like even a battery pack. If not even if not the battery pack, the smaller component of the chips, the BMS controller that goes into the battery pack. Now, if you're only making that semiconductor chip or the BMS controller, that PCB which goes into the battery, again it's a huge industry that you're catering to. So it doesn't have to be the entire vehicle altogether. Sometimes there are simpler things which have more value than the bigger vehicle itself. Something exactly like the electric motor or that controller chip that goes into the vehicle. And there are more things like that. Consider even the vehicle suspension. Now, of course, see, there are a lot of players in the suspension side, because somehow you correlate the suspension with the existing vehicles for the vehicle. the shock absorbers and suspension set up for the vehicles. But at times there is a need which is specifically for the EVs, which might not have been for the petrol diesel vehicles, and you have a space to innovate there. So my point is, when you look at entrepreneurship opportunities, specifically in the EV space, I really suggest that instead of looking at only manufacturing the vehicle, look at the ancillary parts, look at the components that go into making that vehicle. I think you start from there, and that is an industry which actually needs advancements. I'm not sure if you guys have been to the auto expos. Of course, the 2022 auto expo didn't happen in Delhi. It normally used to happen once in 2 years, 2010, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, like that. 2022 hasn't happened, but even in 2020, there were a lot of electric vehicles on the road. We already had two-wheelers from Ather, from Ola was creating buzz. Few of the smaller players like EV India and Ampere Electric and Ultraviolet was making buzz. So a lot of these EV vehicles were already making buzz on the Auto Expo itself, which was for the vehicles. We had a lot of EVs on display, even the four-wheeler cars. But with the Auto Expo, on the parallel, you have another expo called the Auto Components Expo. So if you would have actually, and this happens in Delhi once in every 2 years, the Auto Expo happens in Noida, the Component Expo happens in Delhi, Pragati Maidan. So if you actually enter into the Component Expo, you would realize that there is nobody, and this was 2020, there was nobody who's even considering building components for the EVs. 2022, of course, hasn't happened. So when it happens in 2024, I'm sure you'll have a few players coming up who would display components for EVs, because that's now buzzing. But the fact is, the industry on the component side is still waiting to be picked up. There is no advancement. There are no. In fact, there is no movement at all. You wouldn't find a pure EV component manufacturer. You have a lot of auto component manufacturers who you can then blend with your EVs because you have a need, but the demand is not being fulfilled. So you are adjusting with the supply you have. But supposedly you start building your own components, like I said, the electric motor or the battery component, or maybe only the shock absorber or the suspension, or even the digital clusters, the instrument cluster. That typically in a vehicle, the instrument cluster that gives you information about your kilometers that you're traveling, the odometer, speedometer, fuel indicator. So ideally, these clusters are even used today in the EVs. So if you see an EV, you wouldn't see a battery indicator. You would see the same fuel indicator, which has the same empty fuel and full and whatever, that E and F, and that battery, that fuel symbol, the station symbol. So you can also innovate on that aspect, that now you switch that from the fuel to the battery. So when you switch into the battery, your instrument cluster changes accordingly. Ideally, you see the EVs on road right now, that component is missing. The clusters are the same, so they have not been updated yet. So you have a space to innovate there. So my point is, when you look at the entire industry, look at it in a way that you understand the components that need to be enhanced and build upon that. I really believe that manufacturing the vehicles is now somehow saturated. It's time to look at the components, and honestly, the entire component space would typically have more value than what the EV vehicle space has. Even the vehicle that you're manufacturing, the EVs, the baseline is a chassis or it's a wide body or the design. So typically, as an opportunity, you can very much pick up the chassis designing part also for yourself. I mean, there can always be an understanding that kind of petrol vehicle requires a different material or different kind of chassis. The EVs require a different kind of chassis, and that's very obvious because you don't have a gear and you have a different battery. So you need a space for a bigger battery. The petrol diesel vehicle doesn't need that. So you have actually the design of the chassis is different. What you design for a EV is slightly different than what you do for the IC engine and petrol diesel vehicles. And the structuring is also very different. So you typically have space to innovate there. It's only a chassis. You change the design, and then your branding is we are an upfront chassis designing company. That's all. So you are already catering to a industry which is almost about, again, 17,000 crores. So it's that huge because the EV industry is now booming. So everybody is going to come up with EVs. All the bigger manufacturers like TVS, Hero are already coming up with their EVs. So it's time to, and they are not people who are doing R&D or building their own vehicles. R&D guys are very few. There are these couple of startups who are building from scratch and then making the vehicles. But a majority of this industry is actually those people are only importing from China and building the vehicle. And we actually cannot rely on a China dependency. It has to be reduced. If you keep continuing your China dependency, you're into the export, you're increasing your imports and your revenues are flowing out. So according to the Atmanirbhar Bharat mission and build in Make in India and stuff, the China dependency has to be reduced. So you have opportunities in these spaces as well. You can simply manufacture the chassis, you can design the white body, you can fabricate the white body. the wide body is the entire design that you see. Like say for a four-wheeler vehicle, the entire car that you see, the outer shell that you see, which covers the entire vehicle, is actually called the wide body. Below that, the entire metal frame is called the chassis. So this wide body designing or fabricating is also a huge industry, because ideally there are not many people in India. You're importing the parts specifically for EVs. You're importing the parts and you're fixing it here, assembling it here, and sending it out. So instead of doing that, if you bring up a local player which is building that wide body or fabricating that wide body as per your design, that itself is a huge industry, because this entire part of EVs is coming up. Everything in and around EVs is going to be huge in the next couple of years, and there are loopholes where you can actually innovate and build your products. And it can be anything. It can be those smallest of the smallest hooks or nut and bolt, and the sealing mechanism also. I mean, there's a possibility that earlier we had chassis where the components used to be screwed onto the chassis. I mean, the wide body or uh, basically the cosmetic changes, they had to screw it up onto the body. Right now, if you want, you can make it a screwless integration, and you can innovate on that. There is a possibility that you don't have any screw on the bumper or the structure. It's a screwless innovation. So it's only clipped or something like that. So you have spaces to innovate. So the entire point is, when you look at opportunities in the EV industry, specifically as entrepreneurship, first is you highlight that need. Understand that one component. I mean, you look around the entire industry, understand the industry, and see what is important. Understand what that one component which is very important, and it's not about just being the most important component. Everything in that vehicle is equally important. Even if one component is missing, that entire vehicle cannot function. Even the disc brake or the drum brake, if that is missing, then it doesn't function. The fact is, your EVs ideally do not need a brake which has that much of friction. You can actually control down the friction, or you can change the braking, because the kind of brakes that you need in the petrol diesel vehicles are required, because there's a lot of combustion happening in the engine. There's a lot of energy being utilized, and to stop that rotation or to stop that flow, you brake it. But EVs are lighter on that note. You don't need that strong a brake. You can actually innovate on the brakes also if required, because the requirement of the EV is slightly different as compared to the petrol diesel vehicles. And on those slight differences, you can have multi-crore industries coming up, and then that really depends on your mindset, your passion, and whether you want to think and innovate on that side. So the fact is, apart from that EV manufacturing, just manufacturing the EV and selling EVs to the consumers, there are a lot of B2B possibilities where you manufacture these components and sell them to the EV OEMs. Then they put that into their vehicle and then sell their vehicle. So automatically the chain is then getting more interdependent on India, and you're having the Make in India indigenous development inset, and you're not looking at the China dependency as much. So my only suggestion to you people is that if you want to look at entrepreneurship, you want to walk into building your products in the EV segment, I suggest that manufacturing belt of manufacturing EV, which is actually the forefront of the entire EV industry, is now almost saturated. So instead of looking at that, if you can come back and look at all the components or the ancillary industries, even charging station and charging infra is something which is lacking behind, that has to be addressed to. Whether you're setting up multi-crore charging stations like the petrol diesel stations, or you're setting up smaller charging stations around general stores and all. Now that depends really on your imagination, how you want to structure and build the network, but there is a lot of scope. I mean, India has a population of almost 130, 140 crores. And if you're looking at in the next 4-5 years, everybody switching to EVs, then we ideally need a lot of such EV charging stations. And trust me, the players are very few. It's not like we have a lot of players who are doing the EV charging station. There is a lot of gap, and there are a lot of places across the globe. In fact, specifically in India, also across the states. In Mumbai, Pune, Delhi, you might still see charging stations. But trust me, you come down to spaces like Kolkata, Vizag, even Odisha, Bhubaneswar. You go around the streets, I don't think you will find charging stations. They are not yet here, and you have that scope to innovate. So that's what I leave you guys with. So my only point is that please innovate, experiment, and for innovating and experimenting, you will have to highlight the right opportunity. So look around yourself, understand specifically. I'm talking about the EV sector. Look around yourself, see what actually needs to change, or where there's an opportunity and there's a loophole which can be checked, and accordingly you can build your venture, and I'm sure it will grow, because right now the market is so hot. It's literally fuming that anything in the EV space has a lot of scope of booming and going high. typically not only in vehicles but everything else in the EV space, the charging station, battery designing, battery chemistry, product designing, everything. So I'll wish you all the best, and let's see if you guys are comfortable and you're happy to take up entrepreneurship in EV as a full-time role for yourself. I think that will be an interesting space to watch. So thank you. And yeah, I think before I close, I can give you a little intro about myself. Like I mentioned, I'm the co-founder and CEO at Nexus. So at Nexus, we build battery packs. So we are a typical battery technology company, and we are building a non-lithium battery pack, which is purely biodegradable, and it comes out of another waste called the crop residue. And as of now, we've had successful trials, and we are looking to launch the batteries in the next year and a half. And we are also in process of doing a product pilots and paid trials with a lot of these bigger known EV OEMs across India. Something like even as big as BPCL with their CSR initiative, and Hero Electric, and a few of those bigger brands as well. So that's all about me, and thank you for this space and opportunity. I'll be happy to answer questions if any.
Thank you, Ms. Nishita, for your valuable insights. I would like participants to raise your hands if you have any questions so that we can call you one by one.
Okay, so Akruta, you may ask your question.
I'm from ECE background, so I have not much clue about a battery, but but can integrated circuits actually be a battery? I mean, can they actually be used to charge a given device, electronic device?
See, I'll tell you what, the chargers right now, the component structure is slightly different, but we have seen projects where the fast charging unit, when we build fast chargers for charging batteries, a set of ICs have been used. So which ideally means that it's possible that an IC circuit and the structure can enhance charging, and then there is always a space to experiment. So typically from an ECE background, you have more scope on the electronic side, the components, the chargers, as well as this controller in the battery. So if you can integrate the ICs and have a fast charging component which can also kind of have a similar integrated circuit in the battery, which then connects the entire flow, and then you have the connection moving. See, it's all about having that connection moving. If you can build that circuit and have the current flow, close the circuit and have the current flow, I think it's fine. So ideally, I mean, though it is not regularly used in the battery chargers, but we have seen fast charging equipment projects where ICs have been used. So definitely there is a scope. I won't deny that.
Ma'am, just one last question. Have you tried in your company to incorporate integrated circuits in batteries as well? Can we experiment with the same with the electric vehicles? Uh,
See, some amount of ICs are being used in the entire electrical functioning of the vehicles. I'm not too sure about the two-wheeler, three-wheelers, but in four-wheelers you have this space called the black box, which ideally holds all the electric circuits and the major electric functions for the vehicle. And this is both in electric as well as in your petrol diesel vehicles, because even in your petrol diesel vehicles you have certain amount of components which run on the electricity. Your AC, your lights, and the stereo system and everything actually runs on electricity. They're literally charged. So that black box does have certain ICs integrated, which then allows the functions of the vehicle to run. But as far as our batteries go, we have not really experimented with the ICs in the battery pack. But given a chance, we wouldn't really deny experimenting. We would be open to experimenting on the IC controllers in the battery pack. But because we are more on the battery tech, on the chemistry side, so we build the battery cells ourselves. We manufacture these battery cells, and these are non-lithium battery cells. So we haven't really worked on the electrical side as much. But yeah, like I said, I think if given a chance, we would not deny trying the IC integration into the battery pack.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so now Bilal Zia, you may ask your question. Okay, so he lowered his hand. Now, Mr. Prashant Kumar Singh, you may ask your question.
You can unmute yourself and ask your question, Mr. Prashant Kumar Singh.
Okay. Hello. My question is, ma'am, are these batteries is feasible in India, like climate too cold and too hot, like Meghalaya and Rajasthan?
Which batteries? Our batteries or the prevalent batteries?
EV batteries.
So I mean, any EV battery you're saying?
Those batteries which you are going to manufacture
The
in
ones which
upcoming
we are
days.
making, right? The ones which we are making, right? Yes, our batteries are very much compatible and feasible. The tests have been done not only in the climate control chambers but also in the outer environment spaces. So these a lot of tests have been done, and our batteries are comfortably feasible in India, across the globe, in different climatic zones, and they have been tested from as low as I think -30 to as high as about 80 degrees in the climatic
Okay.
control chambers, and in the actual environment control also they have been tested. So these batteries are comfortably feasible. There's no problem.
Even
As
on
far as,
even on hilly area, ma'am.
so
Even on
it's a
hilly
simple
area.
battery pack. I mean, I don't think you would ask these questions for lithium-ion batteries. So typically, if you're not asking these questions for lithium-ion battery, I don't think there's a question for this kind of questions on an alternate chemistry batteries, because once we are working on it, of course, we are working on these parameters. It's important. But the lithium-ion
Okay.
batteries don't have a problem in the hilly areas. Ideally, our batteries also don't have problem in the hilly areas. And at the same time, even if you find a problem, there's always a mechanism that typically the lithium-ion batteries need to operate in a standard temperature, and there is a cooling component, and the climatic control is attached with the battery, so that part always remains with the lithium-ion batteries as well. So similarly, for our batteries, if we find an issue, we will have the climatic control in place. That's not a problem.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Uh, Bilal Zia, you raise your hand again. Do you have a question? You may unmute first, then ask a question.
Yes, sir. I was trying to ask a question, but my mic was unable to unmute. Ma'am, as you said that the problem is today, the main problem is that EV compatible for a long route. So, how much is the adoption ratio of EV in India? As here in Pakistan, mostly people think that EV is not suitable because of because it doesn't support long route. So, what they are working to overcome this issue?
See, I'll tell you what. Typically, on this Indian subcontinent, the adoption of EV is slightly lower as compared to European and US spaces. I mean, Canada, US, European countries, Israel, Sweden. The adoption for EVs is slightly higher there as compared to India or Pakistan, Nepal. I mean, the Indian subcontinent basically. And the reason is because the charging infrastructure is slightly on the lower side. I mean, you wouldn't find as many charging stations as you would find petrol pumps across the country. So, I mean, see, it's not like there is no change. There are slight changes happening. Like hardly 2 years ago, you would see only 1 out of 20 EVs on the road. I mean, 1 out of 20 vehicles being EVs on the road. But as on today, you would still say maybe you would still find about 3 out of 10 vehicles as EVs on road. So it's not that it's not being adopted; it is being taken up. But where I see a difference is, at least in India, the rural area. Rural India is more equipped with the EVs, so they are the ones who are actually using the EVs more. Of course, it also matters that the I think the travel range is less, and the kilometer range, I mean the area range is less. So that's probably why they're more equipped and more used to EVs, because then that fits into the range anxiety that the vehicles give. And in urban mobility, it's slightly different, but there are changes happening. That's why I mentioned. And these problems are typically in the entire Indian subcontinent. So it doesn't matter if it's India or Pakistan or Sri Lanka or Nepal or Afghanistan. The problem remains the same, that even if the EV manufacturers are coming in, the charging infrastructure is not enough. So if you start working on that side, I think you're already capturing a market. So it's more like a push and pull. So either the EVs push for the charging station or the charging station pulls for the EVs. So it's one and the same thing at the end of the day. They're both making money.
Thank you, ma'am. And one more question, ma'am. Are EVs really environment friendly?
No, they're not. EVs, as of now, with the kind of batteries and the emissions that they have in the manufacturing process, EVs are not eco-friendly right now. They are not. But in the long run, if you switch to better manufacturing techniques, which ideally does not have as much of emissions as they have right now, and the better batteries, typically that is why Nexus is working on a biodegradable battery, which is more eco-friendly and sustainable. So if you're switching to these technologies which are more sustainable and more eco-friendly in nature in the long run, then you are still considering EVs to have less emissions and being more eco-friendly. But as on date, EVs are more polluting than the existing IC and petrol and diesel vehicles are. So it's ideally not sustainable right now.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So once again, thank you very much, ma'am, for your valuable insights on behalf of Composite IIT Kharagpur and NinthSem. As other students don't have many questions, so we can wrap up the workshop here. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, ma'am. If any of you have any more questions, you can feel free to contact through mail mentioned in the chat box, and you can also look into the video I have posted in chat box. Yes, Kaushik, you have raised your.
Hari, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I to mark this as a good end. May I request for all the participants who are in comfortable zone can switch on their video so that we can have a screenshot. We can mark it remarkable.
Yeah, fine. So those who are not having any network issues can switch on their cameras so that it will be very nice to look one another.
सर आपने म्यूटेड कर रखे हैं कैमरा.
अच्छा एक मिनट हाँ मतलब
Okay, now cameras are available. You may turn on your camera.
Yeah, so I'm going to click a screenshot. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys, for taking out time for attending. Regarding the workshop participation certificate, you will be getting in your mail tomorrow, and definitely we're looking forward to such session in electric vehicle and more other trending technologies so that we can learn more, we can grow more, and we can upskill ourselves with regards to the industry match. Thank you so much.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
You can also look into the video and the mail ID in the chat box so that you can contact us later.
सर लीव कर सकते हैं आप.